that inkling went away when Shell, in trying to, at the time, first they tried to run us out of business.
Yeah. You wanted to prove to yourself that I could do it. And in you doing it, you then, where you got the confirmation from was when somebody offered to buy out what you have started. Correct. It's most like confirmation that I have reached. I am now a competitor. I am now in the market space, taking that market share in a bit. So they see me as profitable and they want to take.
We had to use my salary as the income stream to get the first loan to do the gas station.
And so our viewers and listeners need to understand that regardless of where you are in business, whether you have the endowment or not, what it really requires is that drive to prove to oneself that you can make it. Prove to oneself that there is a vision, there is something that I want to accomplish. And you certainly did that for your journey. Here's another episode with Joseph Joey Issa, and we continue our conversation with this known entrepreneur, a philanthropist who continues to give Jamaica his time, his service, and we are definitely here on the business end, better for it. So we continue our conversation with Mr. Joseph Joey Issa. If you have any words you want to say to a potential business owner out there, Mr. Joseph Issa, to encourage them in order to do some development, what would it be?
Well, what I would say from my journey is I've found that you can get more done in government versus the Chamber of Commerce, the K1 is, and so on. Because when you look back at what are issues today, there were issues 20 years ago that are still coming up in the minutes of all these service organizations. So I would encourage everybody, go to the Ministry of Finance and register to be on a government board. I would encourage everybody, get involved with, it doesn't matter which political party, get involved with a political party. Pick somebody you like and work with them. Because when no party is in power forever, and when a party is in power, they will select boards based on who they know. It's only human nature and natural. They want somebody who will work at nation building, but also somebody they can trust. So the better, if civil society gets involved, then we will have better board members being selected and better governance. Now, I was, as I said, not by design, by default. I was made chairman of PICA back in 2016-17. Passport, immigration, and citizenship. And it's probably my most satisfying board I've sat on, and one of the most, but where we saw results. And we had on the board not a PhD or a MBA type board. We had a counselor from St. Mary, we had a union rep, we had a travel agent. We had a fellow who had a small security company. And our mantra, and we were an advisory board, so management did not have to listen to us. So it's almost like the role of Custos, where you have a moral authority, but you don't have any, you can't instruct anybody to do anything. And we went in there and we said, we would like to see it operate where if we're 80, and we don't know anybody, have no influence, what kind of service would we want when we went to the passport office to get service? And so we started with a list of about, it was 3 pages of items. When we left, it ended up being 7 outstanding items. But one of the things, and this is an interesting story, at the time we inherited it, There were 7 hour. You went into the office in the morning, got a ticket, you waited 7 hours before you got service.
Yeah.
And we said to management that, this is wrong.
Yeah.
Nobody must wait more than 30 minutes. If they wait more than 30 minutes, you must tell them the time that they're to come back so they can go have breakfast, do their business, whatever it is they need to do. But just out of respect for a fellow Jamaican. And it's interesting. So moving in that direction, management came back to us, I think it was roughly 2 months later, and said to the board, look, country people get up at 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
They're outside our door at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
We open at 8:30. So when we open at 8:30, we have 300, it was 8 or 8:30. We have 300 people. So we're already starting from behind the mark.
Yeah.
Can they open at 6 o'clock in the morning? And they didn't need extra staff because in government, if you need extra staff, you have to go and apply it.
Yeah.
So no extra staff. We said, all right, no problem. That solved 90 to 95% of the problem that had been there and inherent for years and years. So that was satisfying that we also at the time, the American Embassy had a thing with their passports where they were returned by DHL and, So we were nervous because we said, it's passports, you have the security issues and so on. So we just used the same service provider as the U.S. Embassy did, copied exactly what they did, and put that in place. We also put in place a Dropbox, online passport. We were able to, people used to wait months to get their passports when they went to the New York Embassy or the Miami office for Jamaica. We put in place equipment at those offices so we could turn the thing around. I think we got it turned around. Don't hold me to this. I think we moved it down to a week or something like that. But long and short of it, when we left, it was probably the best passport office in the world. And we also were rated the best government agency in Jamaica. So that was satisfying personally, but at the same time, as part of nation building, if we weren't there and if we didn't do what we did, the service that we would all be getting when we get old would have been worse. So to your point, one of the reasons to get involved is if we help Jamaica, the different services or the different aspects of life that government touch on be better, then we will be retiring into Jamaica, and the quality of life is better for each and every one of us.
Yes.
And the standard of living is better for each and every one of us.
Yeah.
So that's the point I wanted to make on the thoughts you threw out there.
Yes, sure. We have many viewers and listeners who are entrepreneurs, and they probably is entering into a space where sometimes it's frustrating. They're hitting a ceiling and they can't seem to break out of that. Now, you are able to break out of your own ceiling struggles of the early days. What sort of strategies did you employ in order to get that sustainable growth, that you're able to break out of that sort of cage, that sort of restriction, and be able to sustainable businesses?
No, there was 1 year. You feel like you're hitting your head against the wall. There's no real strategy. It's just survival.
Yeah.
And 1 year I looked at my wife 8 times and I said, boy, honey, I don't think we're going to make it through. You're going to have to support us. Because you do get to the point where you can, you just don't see any way out. So when you're in that zone, and especially if you're leveraged, it's even harder. And you just hope to God you can make it through to the other side.
Yes.
So I don't think there's any. When you're in that zone and you look and you can't see any more options, and you just keep at it. Just
keeping at it. But it suggests to me that you had strong faith. You had strong faith, and you had a never give up attitude, because even though you felt like this was it, you turned and seek consultation with your wife at the time, and I'm sure she said, no, I believe in you. I believe in you.
I'm not sure if she said
Joey.
that.
I don't believe
I don't
in
remember
you, Joey.
that.
I believe in you, Joey.
I actually think it's worse for your spouse
Yes.
because they probably hear the downside but don't necessarily hear the upside.
Yes.
So I think it's harder for a spouse
Yes.
to go through that.
Go through that.
Than you yourself, you know. So it's hard. It's hard. There's no way to sugarcoat it.
Yes.
It is rough and hard when you start your own business.
But you're saying don't give up.
Don't give up, and probably if you don't make it to the other end,
Yes, you'd have learned something.
learn something that you can use again. It is what it is. It's life.
Yes. So you would have seen Jamaica gone through several ebbs and flows, several different structural changes in the economy. Now, what I want to ask you is, given Jamaica's economic landscape, what would you like to see that would enable us to foster that economic growth in which you desire?
Jamaica, well, the whole world generally, but Jamaica in particular is evolving. So
Yes.
we have come a long way from what we were. And
Yes.
so we now have, I would say, probably the best political system
Yes.
of any country in the world. So
Yeah.
our democracy is essentially assured for generations to come. Once we as a people are involved, and on top of things, very hard to steal an election.
Yes.
We also, and that came out of the 70s and 80s. We also, coming out of the 90s, have probably one of the most robust checks and balances in our
Yeah.
insurance and banking sector. So it's highly unlikely that we will have a meltdown again of the likes of the 90s.
Yeah.
And when you look across the board, there's a number of checks and balances that have been put in that will protect us moving forward. Like in the 70s, you could just, government of the day could just, and the 60s could just give you a piece of land. That can't happen anymore. That's go to tender, best bid, it wins, and that sort of thing. And you also have the financial services division, you have the integrity provision, even though I know it's going through some issues, but long term, at least we have it.
Yeah.
We have, tax department has been strengthened.
Yeah.
Highway patrol. So when you look across Jamaica, we are progressing. Now, so there'll always be different things that we could do better at.
Yeah.
Now, for me, and then in the current role as Custos, what appears to be pressing from my standpoint is whether or not we can improve the justice system so that, like in the financial sector, like in the electoral environment, we can create a justice system that meets the needs of our society today. It's wishful thinking. I'm not sure if it's achievable or not, but all we can do is try.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, we as a society tend to take justice in our own hands.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that for me is obvious and pressing that I personally plan to work on. But generally, I would suggest to each of us is if any of us are passionate about a certain aspect of life or in Jamaica that they want to see improve, just take that on as their mission and work on it. And my advice or suggestion is don't try 5 or 6 things because then you get nothing done. Just pick one thing and just work on that as your little baby.
Yeah.
And we're more likely to be successful that way. So if I'm working on this that's near and dear to my heart, if you have 1,000 other Jamaicans, of the 3 million Jamaicans living in Jamaica and the 5 million Jamaicans living overseas, if you just have 1,000 that step up and pick one item and decide to work on it and lobby for it and sit on it, then the Jamaica of tomorrow is likely to be 10 to 100 times better than the Jamaica of today.
Yeah.
Even though what we have today is good
Yeah.
and excellent, but we'll just make it better.
Yes, yes. Solid point. Now, on that note of making Jamaica better, I know you would have been involved in the Educate the Children Fund, and that is your initiative that you would have placed in terms of pushing forward education as a means for us to grow and to develop our nation. What would you say is the role that you see future education that it plays in entrepreneurship or even the development of businesses across Jamaica?
We're an interesting people
Yes.
in that if the money is there, we'll find a way to educate ourselves,
Yes.
no matter where we're coming from.
Yes.
So, part and parcel of the problem in Jamaica is our salaries
Yeah.
overall are not where we all want them to be. So the workers would like it to be higher, but then the business can't necessarily afford it. So you have that continuous dynamic,
Yeah.
ongoing. But what will happen is, as we move, I mean, back in the early 80s, unemployment was 40%.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd see in my lifetime unemployment dropping down to, I think it's 7.1 now or 6.9%.
Yes, single digits, yeah.
And within a few years, we'll probably be under 5%.
Yeah.
So what will happen is if you don't take care of your people right, or take care of your people right, or, pay higher salaries, you're going to lose your people.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a new environment, and it's an environment in which labor holds the handle now.
Yeah.
So that said, it will force businesses, if they want to recruit and find people, that they're going to have to get involved with educating if the person or persons are not up to
At the
the
level.
standard.
Yeah.
So you will have that happening
Yeah.
at the same time as what happens with the Ministry of Education. Now, it's going to be harder for the Ministry of Education to change but not impossible. But what will likely happen on that front is with the evolution of AI and with online learning, no matter what their shortcomings are, we as a people will have the ability to educate ourselves.
Yeah.
So, because you have these free Wi-Fi zones throughout the country, it's just a matter of time before we as a people get smart and say, okay, here's how I can learn online, and it's going to cost me little or no money.
Yeah.
So I know it's a problem. I know it's not where we want it to be. But I have faith that it will sort itself out in time.
Eventually. So you would encourage potential or existing business personnel to go the route of finding programs that would help to develop their staff complement in a bit to ensure that they have the capable persons to carry their business to the next level.
Right. Now remember, we are number 5 in, I think it's number 5 or number 3 in the world where we move to, but there's a word for it, but where we move to immigrate to other countries to gain employment.
Yes.
So Jamaica is essentially a stepping stone for many Jamaicans to go abroad.
Abroad, yeah.
And I see that continuing because that's where at the moment the dollars are. So people will find ways to educate themselves,
Yes.
to get, if they see a pathway to
Yeah.
overseas professions and so on.
No. Excellent. Let me ask you, Mr. Issa, what has been your single most greatest achievement in business so far? The one experience that makes you smile and you feel at peace in yourself.
It doesn't give all those thoughts. It was an achievement, but then we weren't able to hold on to it. So
Yes.
it did. But when we were able to pull off the buying of the Shell company
Yes.
with our partners, Neil and Massey, and it was a $200 million
Yes.
US deal that we were nowhere near that size.
Yeah.
And it was done all leverage.
Yeah.
I'd say that was probably the single most biggest achievement in terms of it was effectively a miracle we pulled out. I mean,
Yeah.
that's something that should never have happened, and we were able to do it. But unfortunately, we couldn't hold on to it,
Yeah.
and we had to divest it. But as an achievement, yeah, that would have been the one that where you're going against all odds. It should
Yes.
never have happened, and it took everything out of us creatively to make it happen, and we were able to make it happen.
That's and we applaud you, sir, for your indelible mark that you would have placed within the industry, and certainly it would have been inspiring to many of our viewers and listeners who are out there seeing a deal, seeing an opportunity, and at the time they believe the opportunity is way bigger than themselves. But if they have the right strategic partnership in which you had, you're able to reach that opportunity as a collective group. And that is what we're encouraging our viewers and listeners to take the point here that individually you may not be able to achieve that particular target that you're listening or you have listed at. But if you were able to have strategic partnerships, you were able to reach that opportunity and, of course, move your business to the next level. Now, there have been some common pitfalls that persons tend to make in terms of business, common mistakes they make. Could you care to name one or two of those common mistakes and how would you recommend that they overcome some of those common pitfalls?
And one of the common mistakes is not having your accounts department in order,
Yes.
and that's critical. But the challenge is you might not have the funds to pay for the right accountant.
Yes.
So it's a catch-22. So it's extremely hard, but I would suggest as much as you can in any which way you can, make sure your accounting is in order.
Yes.
So that you know that the cash you have is your cash, the expenses you have is your expenses. And although I'm a CPA by training, I mean, it caught me too.
Yes.
And I remember one bank, when we had discovered some fraud that was major at the time, one banker saying to me, because we were beating ourselves up, I was beating myself up. And the banker said to me, Mr. Issa, stop beating yourself up. You don't realize 90% of businesses in Jamaica have far less controls than you have.
Yeah.
And I said, it's just part of the game. But out of that hiccup or butthole, I remember we put in place for 3 years, we had meetings every week. They lasted about 3 hours initially. And where all we focused on was how, if somebody was to rob us, how would they go about robbing us and how do we plug that loophole? And we went through that exercise to tighten up all our systems and controls. So the journey, you're going to have things that face you along the way and then you have to deal with it. But accounting and control is probably the single most important one
That you need to look at. You made mention of having accounting structure and stuff. I'm sure you would have probably improved your accounting software and technology has played a significant role in your business development and growth. How would you say that going forward, what are some of the technological advancements or does the technological innovative strategies that you want to put in place to ensure that you can take your business to the next level?
Yeah, on that front, First of all, our systems are fairly advanced, and
Yes.
we created a number of things that are unique to us
Yeah.
with our own software to put in place the controls that we have, which
Yeah.
are actually quite unique. But separate apart from that, moving forward, I mean, from our perspective and from where we're sitting, we have a curiosity as it relates to AI
Yeah.
and how that will impact the overall business. So we have charged our IT division and one of the divisions within the company to work together and test AI with a couple of job functions over the next 12 to 18 months so that we can actually see whether or not it, how it works, whether it works,
Yeah.
are we comfortable with it,
Yeah.
is it something we want to expand further? Because right now it's a great unknown,
Yes.
but how can we use it to better the business? And it's probably harder for us because we're all effectively, I don't want to use the word dynamic, we're older,
Yes.
so we're not as intimately familiar, and as you're older, it's a little harder to be more flexible and
Yeah.
to learn. It'd probably be easier for the kids to do it. So at the moment, AI would be the great unknown technology that could make the business more efficient.
Yeah.
But we have to, our approach is to you dip your toe in the water first, see how hot it is or how cold it is before you jump in. So we're at the stage now where we're trying to, dip our toe in the water in this space. And if it works, we'll embrace it more, grow it more, and it will build the confidence among the senior management team that it's
Yeah.
a tool we need to use. And if it doesn't work, then we'll try it again with something else.
Yeah. Outside of the artificial intelligence that you speak of, what are some of the things that you want to implement for the future cool group of companies?
Well, it's ongoing. So
Yes.
it's not a matter of something that is a major shift. It's more tweaking and refining
Yes.
what we have.
Yeah.
So it's in the early days, it was like when we started Cool Market, we wrote the software,
Yeah.
we upgraded it 3 or 4 times, but it's at a point where it doesn't need a major upgrade.
Yeah.
In the early days, you had the issues with hackers and so on, and
Yeah.
we put in the security measures there. So we've evolved. So it's more refining now.
Yeah.
Than it is, and maintaining than it is creating something new.
Creating something new.
Yeah.
And so we look forward to this more refined and this more elaborate and more efficient lean machine of cool group of companies going forward.
Yeah.
But where and how can persons contact your group of companies?
The OTRS office, or on the website. They can go on the website.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll just mention this on IT. We were fortunate that we were, our head office is in the country because right by Prospect, they have a school that they teach the kids military, music, and IT. They do about 40 students a year. So we were fortunate and lucky enough to have that as a pool of, as the graduates came out, we had that as a pool of IT
And
expertise at that were affordable, that we could then embrace IT more than the average company.
Yes, understood. We want to thank you, Mr. Joseph Issa, for having a chat with us here today on the business end. It was an edifying conversation, a conversation that spans across decades of knowledge and just your own expertise in economic development. I'm sure my viewers and listeners are well for it, and we want to thank you, sir, for taking the time out for your busy schedule to come and speak with us, educating us, motivating us in order to make the next level. And I'm sure there are inspired viewers and listeners at this point in time who want to take their business to the next level, and the different gems that has been bestowed upon us here today would have certainly helped them along that path. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So here on the business end, of course, I tell you all every single week, you are the best. You are the Business End Show tribe. Literally, you are the best. Now, we can be contacted at the Business End Show for YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, and also on Instagram. Now, until next week, you continue to be your increasing best. Thank you.
Master Coach Apostle Courtney McLean and Business Coach Zidane Sinister are powered up to share their expertise on the business end. But don't forget to tell a friend or a colleague, and of course have your tools on hand, your notebook and your pen. Classes are in session every Tuesday, 3:30 on Gospel JA for the business end. Master Coach Apostle Courtney McLean and Business Coach Zidane Sinister await you.